Hello, everyone, and welcome today. So excited to have you here today on my special birthday episode 72, Celebrity Customer Experience Riffs with me, Jill Raff, where we riff on anything and everything from employee experience to customer experience. Because I believe and guarantee you that outstanding employee experience will lead to outstanding customer experience. I want to thank you today for investing your time and spending this next 30 minutes or so with me and my guest today, who you're going to love, as we explore magical moments, memorable moments, and how this is so important for the customer experience and why they're so intrinsically combined and connected, the employee experience with the customer experience. I know that time is one of our most, if not the most, valued resource that we have. So I really appreciate you and your time being here with us today, because we can never get our time back. And I get that, especially on my birthday. um, so Again, thank you for joining. And really, to maximize your time with us here today, I want to encourage you to take notes, comment along the way, join in the conversation. When you comment, I'll be able to see it, and I will highlight that and ask questions to me and my guest, who I will, without further ado, want to bring you the fabulous Sarah Dandashy.
Good morning, Jill. Oh my gosh. Well, it's still morning for me in Los Angeles. I know it's just noon for you in the central time area. But first of all, happy birthday. It's so exciting to join you on your birthday. We're going to have an amazing conversation, but I love that we get to do this kind of in celebration of you.
Well, no, today is to celebrate you and all the great things that you're doing. And I could think of a no better way than to spend my birthday with you today. So just to give everyone a little bit of your background, Sarah was a former hotelier who works and creates travel videos for travel brands and talks about travel trends on TV. So Sarah is a verified travel expert and former award-winning Les Chefs d'Or concierge with 18 years of luxury hotel experience. Going beyond the traditional concierge desk, Sarah has brought her travel advice to the digital space, establishing over 200,000 social media following, and continues to work with some of the leading brands in the travel industry. People seek out Sarah's travel tips, advice, and knowledge of trends on the front lines of travel. She's also appeared on Kelly Clarkson's show, Good Day LA, and makes regular TV appearances on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And so exciting, she has a book coming out next month. Look out for it, Hospitality from Within. Congratulations, Sarah. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Oh my gosh, that was a mouthful. That was a lot. Somebody stays busy.
Well, exactly. If you can keep up with Sarah, I want to start out by encouraging everyone to definitely connect with Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and put this up on the screen now. On Instagram, she's blowing it up. I live vicariously through her experiences, through all her travel. We're going to hear a little bit about that, and really how we learn from these travels, the tips and the experiences and the photos and the videos and everything she does, how it ties in so importantly with that experience. So before we jump into all that, because I know in our pre-call talk, we were like, there's so many exciting things we want to talk about, but I want everyone to learn a little bit more about your beginning, your backstory, and how you got started into this world of being a concierge in hotels and just involvement in the hospitality world.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I was going to school in Washington, D.C., and I was studying international relations at Georgetown, at their School of Foreign Service. But as I was going to school, I always wanted to have something else that I was working on. As we can see, I have always made it a point to be working on 5 million things at once. But as I was going to school, I wanted an additional job. And my cousin at the time, who had gone to, Lausanne, the, leading hotel school. He was working at the Four Seasons, and he's like, come work at the Four Seasons. So I had already had some restaurant experience, so I wasn't going in completely blind to hospitality, but I ended up starting at the Four Seasons in Georgetown in Washington, D.C.
Mm.
I was a hostess in the restaurant area, and grew to really love it. And I enjoyed the hotel experience. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, I was like, okay, well, let me figure out what I kind of want to do. And as far as a day job, because I was also pursuing a career in film and TV, I was like, well, hotels always seemed like home to me. So I'll apply to work at a hotel. And I had more bartending and restaurant experience. So I figured I'd go that route. And my first job interview, the general manager was like, want to take this interview in a different direction. What do you think about being a concierge? And mind you, I'm like 22, okay, freshly 22. And this is a 5-star, 5-diamond hotel in the middle of Beverly Hills. Being a concierge at a property like that is a tall order, especially for somebody of that age. But I was like, you know what? I'm good with maps. I'll figure it out, as one says. And I was really thrown into it. But I really think that the best thing is that it was all about having the right mindset, because he knew that my knowledge was limited. I had only moved to Los Angeles. I was still learning things, but I was good at reading people. And not only that, but I had the right attitude of being basically, I'm not sure, but let me find out for you. And because I had that attitude, I could navigate pretty much just diving right into such a high level of a hospitality experience. And then from there, moved on to different properties. I was at the Peninsula in Beverly Hills, then more recently, the London West Hollywood as well, too. So it's been an exciting journey. And then my brand has evolved over the years.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Well, I don't want this to pass by without people really tapping into what you just said. And the gold nugget that I saw there is the attitude that you had, the mindset. To me, it's the curiosity. It's living with curiosity and showing I can do anything. Just give me a chance, throw it at me and prove yourself. And I think if everyone as an employee, regardless of what level you are and what title, what accomplishment you've achieved, even at this point, if you go in every day with that sense of curiosity and excitement to learn and grow, then you're a huge asset for that company, which clearly he identified something special in you. He felt that curiosity, that hunger, that willingness to do that. And that is, to me, so exciting. I think
it's when we look back on our lives, there are so many, we all have moments like that where either somebody took a chance on us that we didn't even see, or we just happened to be doing something and we were at the right place, the right time. And I think it's so important for us to pause at times and look back on that, because it all makes sense. There's so many moments that I'll be doing something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. And I look back and it's like, all my years of experience of doing XYZ has helped lead me to be prepared in this moment. And sometimes the moment seems so easy and not like a big deal, but it was all these building blocks of whatever's happened, the decisions that you made that have led you to that moment. And it's kind of special to, acknowledge those.
100%. We have to celebrate every win every day. And I agree 100%. We are an amalgamation of everything that we've done. And one thing prepares us for the next, and for things we don't even know. Like sometimes I think we can plan, but then we have to just let life happen and put it out to the universe, right? And things present themselves. And sometimes then you'll end up with magical moments, which we'll get into. And other times maybe it won't be the right thing. And so you're like, okay, so now let's turn left and take a different path. But I agree 100%. And that's the way I've lived my life. I've got a deep background, as you know, across many industries, from fashion to restaurants to real estate. And I definitely feel that all of those things 100% solidifies the work that I'm doing now in EX to CX. So we call this episode Making Magical and Memorable creating magical and memorable moments.
Mhm.
And I just want to dive into those. Both of those
Yeah.
words are so important. So let's start with the magical.
Yes.
Um, and explain to us how what you're doing, it is magical. When I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, I want to just be there. But explain to us how those magical moments, how you're capturing them, what you're doing for your client as you're doing that, and how you feel that you're communicating that
Mhm.
in in the behalf of the companies that you're representing, so that customers will say, oh, I can have that great experience.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of for me, it all starts from I look at everything sort of through the lens of myself as being a concierge because I was one for so long, and I always like to say that there's an element of the concierge were kind of like the original travel influencers, or concierge or travel advisors because you are helping curate travel
Mm,
experiences ultimately at the end of the day.
yes.
So when I think back of the root of what I really have built my career on, which was being a professional hotel concierge, uh, it was being able to help curate these moments, find these moments that are so special
Mhm.
and unique and almost, not necessarily perfect, but just so, um, for lack of a better word, we'll just say so perfect for that particular guest. And
Mm,
but by perfect, I'm not meaning like nothing goes wrong, but I'm meaning just like it was just the right the right opportunity, the right experience at the right moment. And that's what I mean by perfect. And so it's this special sauce. And to be able to help travelers have those experiences as a concierge, I then understand that. And so that's sort of that hotel speak.
mm,
So how can we capture those moments? Because all hotels, or properties, and those are a lot of places that I work with, but I also do work with a lot of destinations. What are those magical moments? Is it exploring like the back part of, a museum or an attraction that it's not something that everybody gets to see, and just even knowing that it's available and it's out there,
mm,
or even it's capturing that wonder. At the end of the day, when you're thinking about travel or hospitality, it's all about the experience. So either, my goal is to either help make that experience happen for those guests or travelers or individuals, or vice versa, share that I'm having that experience to hopefully inspire them to then also make that happen for themselves. So I think it's really kind of all about showcasing the experiences that people can have in a location, whether it is by being a concierge or whether it is creating amazing travel content that just kind of captures the essence and really takes people on that journey that we're so lucky to be able to have our fingers in one way or
mhm.
another, in the world of hospitality.
Yeah. And I love when you said perfect doesn't mean that nothing that something doesn't go wrong, right? That
Yeah.
nothing goes wrong. And I think that's really true because life happens and things
Yeah,
go wrong, and it's really how you then handle that.
exactly.
But more importantly than that, what I heard you say when you're talking about making sure it's perfect for that person, that
Mhm.
really ties into something I'm a huge proponent of, and that's getting personal, creating those
Yeah.
relationships, understanding who is your guest, who
Mhm.
is your customer, your client. What
Mhm.
is it that they need? What is it that would create a wonder for them in this
Yes.
environment? And serving them just that. And for it would be different for different people. And yes, it means taking a little more time,
Mhm.
but the dividends will just pay off
Exactly.
endlessly.
Totally. And that's the whole thing is that, nobody we are living at a time where people, travelers, we have so much knowledge at our fingertips. Nobody in anything, not in any industry, wants cookie cutter. They don't want
Mhm.
box cookie cutter,
Right.
same old, same old. Everybody wants to feel special
Yes.
and they want something to feel unique to them.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, yes, you might have like the same base for something, but it's all about the little nuances, the little changes that you can do that can make it specific for that guest. That, as you said, 100%, it it pays dividends in how it comes back to
Mhm.
a company, whether it is in that repeat business, whether it is in that story that's being told.
In the
You know,
referral business, yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And that's, kind of where this notion of creating these memorable moments comes from, is that if you can help curate these moments that become a memory, then this memory is shared at dinner parties for maybe even
Yes.
decades to come. And
Mhm.
how cool that we get to be part of that experience, because that to me is so enriching. That to me
Mhm.
is almost more powerful than, just a paycheck, because you're like, wow, I was able to create a special moment for somebody that's a memory that they're going to keep with them until their 90s. How cool is that?
Forever. Yes. Yeah.
So, so important. So, when we did talk about this a little bit yesterday prior to coming on today, is that the industry that we're in and what we do involves so much of giving of ourselves. And that's on one part what makes it so rewarding, but on the other side, we are people. And sometimes it's like we need a little bit of extra motivation or inspiration, because it does require so much of us to show up every single day. So
Mm.
I always like to say, it's like to take a moment and think about it in the guest shoes. And if you were there coming for the first time, or having this experience in whatever the destination or property is, and how would you want to be treated?
Mm.
And then you just
Yes.
constantly reminding of yourself that awe and that wonder. Um, and if you look at it through those fresh eyes, it kind of
Mhm.
helps re-inspire you to look at it with fresh eyes as well too.
Yeah, the one I love the word wonder, and I think it is so perfect for any sort of service experience business. And with my McDonald's background, of course,
Mhm.
I'm all about the secret sauce that
Yes.
you mentioned, right? And I feel that the secret sauce in this case is that the big impact happens in the small details,
Mhm.
and it is in fact those little things that make it memorable. So talking about being memorable, being an important part of that experience for repeat business, for referrals, all of those things that are going to build your business and grow your customer base. So it's a part actually of what I call my customer repeat customer insurance, the PMI insurance plan. And it's not real estate. Yes, I was in real estate. PMI has nothing to do with this though. It is actually your repeat customer insurance.
Mhm.
And that is everything that you do needs to be positive, memorable, and an interaction. And so when we do this, we have this positive, memorable interaction with our guests, with our clients, with our customers.
Mhm.
You then do become a part of their story. It's
Mhm.
and I think the story is really important, like you mentioned, because I think most businesses think in a transactional way, and they don't
Mhm.
think about the fact that they can become a part of the story of someone's life and be a
Yes.
part of that thread. And I love that, the fabric of someone's life through the experiences that you give to them. So
Yeah. I think it's also important to think of it in the ways like, everybody's the lead character in the story of their life, and if
mhm,
you um, understand that and play into that, and not play into it in a negative sense, but play into that and understand your role, that if you can help them be this, the main character in the movie of their life, that kind of, it's like you almost like understand your role in that. And if you
mm,
can fully embrace that role, it's a supporting role, but it can help lay the groundwork for a beautiful setting, a beautiful moment, and and maybe even like create that moment where they weren't even expecting it as well.
mhm. Yeah, always the biggest impact there for sure.
Yeah.
So let's jump to the inevitable, the effects of
Mhm.
the pandemic,
Mhm.
particularly hospitality, restaurants. I think of restaurants in hospitality,
Yeah.
um, all hit very, very hard. And
Mhm.
now people are vaccinated. There are a lot of protocols and safety
Mhm.
elements that are enacted in all these businesses. So people are dying to get out, right? They are
Yeah.
just right. They're planning, eating out, doing what they can. So everyone's craving that human connection again.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about the fact that we discussed and that we see in studies that there are higher expectations right now, excuse me, of the guests of the businesses that they're paying more money to do. Their
Mhm.
airlines cost ticket is more, the hotel is more, the food is more. The food may be more, but it's really not as good, and there aren't
Yeah.
as many people there to serve them and take care of them. There are
Mhm.
so many elements that are tied into, as we talked about, and psychologically we all know the more we pay for something, the higher our expectation is. But is
Mhm.
that fair? And let's just talk about that a little bit, about what you're
Yeah.
seeing on your side.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of this is a great point, and right now, travelers, guests, are have higher expectations, and sorry, on one hand, rightfully so, because we are kind of coming out of a pandemic. There are different standards in regards to that. Also, there's an element of people have withheld from having certain experiences, so now they're getting back out there, and
Mm.
they are probably spending more for those experiences. So with that, they have higher expectations. On the flip side, right now, the hospitality industry as a whole, across the board, across different demographics, you name it, there is a bit of a struggle. It is, in general, the hospitality industry had to cut back and become very, very lean. Then it started to have to rehire people. And there's this almost this seesaw that the demand was coming back faster than many
Mhm.
businesses were able to rehire. And now there is still this struggle to rehire for a multitude of reasons. And so now a lot of businesses are having a little bit of this struggle, and how can they still deliver at the expectations and at the levels that their current clients, customers, guests are expecting of them. So we're at this crossroads right now, that it's still a little bit of the struggle. And I personally think that we'll probably still be in this for at least another year, just because of everything with the pandemic is still fluid. And I'm looking at it from a global perspective, not
Yes.
necessarily what's just happening in the United States, but globally. For example, I'm going to be traveling to Germany next week, and that'll be a really interesting I'm going to be looking at the customer service experience and how things are there,
Mm.
because there are similarities to here, but then there will also be some differences as well. So I think that it's going to be a little bit of this seesaw as we, still manage to come out of it. But then hopefully this is also a time for many hospitality businesses to kind of like look within and say, okay, what can we do better? Do we really focus on creating a better workplace environment for our employees? Do we really put a big focus on having more of a work and personal life balance? Because we all know in the hospitality industry, it is hard to have that. How can we show little ways of appreciation? So I really think that it's more of kind of that internal look and the industry as a whole, because I think this was actually in a conversation I was having with somebody else yesterday, but it applies to this. It's like, as we all know, happy employees, happy crew, whatever you want to call them, means happy guests at the end of the day. So
Yeah,
it all,
that's my E3 formula, actually. It's educate, not just train, but educate times engage times entrust equals happy loyal employees, and
Mhm.
happy loyal employees equals happy loyal customers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
100%. And that's why we touched on it. That's a lot of the reason why I did my book, which is Hospitality from Within. Yes, it's an element of delivering service from a really genuine, authentic place. This passion to create these special moments, but there is also an element hospitality from within on a company-wide level. How can we really, focus on the inner workings of the company? Because if the company and everybody in it is happy, that absolutely translates to the guests. And it just
Yes.
grows exponentially from there, as you said.
100%. And I know we talked a little bit about this gap that's happening, right? Studies that
Mhm.
are being done now with the fact that all these executive leaders and owners are thinking, well, everyone's coming back, things are doing great.
Mhm.
I've had this time with my family, and now business is good, and I'm really happy. So what's the problem? Why is the staff not happy? Right? There's this huge chasm, this huge gap that's
Mhm.
going on. And I think that that's something that needs to be addressed in some way. It's one of the reasons actually, that I have a program. I address the expectation gap, right, through
Mhm.
expectation management, and it's essentially I see it and on three levels. So tell me what you think. I see it as a gap between the leadership and their staff.
Mhm.
I see the gap between the staff and their guests, their
Mhm.
customers, right, with
Mhm.
what's going on, expectations on both sides when I
Yes.
mention. And then, of course, there's a gap between the expectations of the customers and then what, in fact, what they're expecting to get, as we just talked about, is they're paying all this money now that they're back out and spending money and having these experiences. And there's a
Mhm.
gap in what they're actually getting for that money and
Yeah.
for that time that they finally, or, value time that they're able to get away. So there are these huge gaps along the way.
Mhm.
And I think we all need to address this, expectation management is what I'm calling it.
Yeah. I agree. By the way, all of those are spot on. And as we all know, a big part of the customer experience is managing expectations. And
Mhm.
so, as we are seeing, you just mentioned there are three areas that there's a gap. So no wonder things are not quite fitting or not quite hitting the mark, because we're all basically looking at it through arguably our own lens and not taking a
Yes.
moment to look at it through a different perspective. And I think that, I mean, part of it could be is we're coming out of this essence of survival mode,
Mhm.
so there's a little bit more of the, it's hard to have maybe a broader vision when you are
Mhm.
so focused on surviving. So but
Yeah, well, and as a leader,
yeah,
you cannot live in survival mode,
no,
both
you can't.
personally and for your team. You have to be the visionary. You have
Mhm.
to be the inspiration, the motivation for your team to see the bigger picture. And if you're
Yeah.
not, then you may as well just save yourself some some money right now and close your doors because, I do think that it's dangerous to just only look through our own lens.
Yes.
Um, so I want to welcome Jorge is with us. Balcazar, thank you for joining today. And he contributes with the right attitude, possible to find your purpose, embrace the present. And thank you, Jorge, for joining and for that comment, because I think it's really perfect to what we're saying now is that
Mhm.
you have to think in the present. You have to
Mhm.
be present with what's going on with everyone, but you have to also have that vision for the future and figure
Yeah.
out how then do we prepare. So you and I also talked about some experiences where people are opening up now during this time, which I give them huge applause for
Mhm.
having the courage and opening at a time where things are still really rough.
Yeah.
But again, there are these gaps, and so we talked a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about that here because the conversation was interesting. And I know we're going to be a little over time, but I want to get
Okay.
this in. Um, about the consequences that are happening with these struggles, and that when a guest goes into an environment, um, I know you and I were talking about, we come from this business, this industry. And so for us, we're picking up even right under our peripheral vision, we're seeing an interaction or a transaction going on that we're
Mhm.
thinking our brains already assessing what's going on and, oh, they should be saying this instead of that. And at the same time, we're also noticing something happening in front of us, right? It's like your antennae is like just firing at all levels.
Yeah.
And so what is your experience with now that you're doing all these travel things to seeing
Mhm.
what's happening with companies who aren't taking that time to maybe create those clear lines of communication and clear communication to start with, right? And then making sure it gets disseminated to everyone
Mhm.
and that it's taught, not just told them what to do, but it's actually taught to that frontline staff that's interfacing with your end customer, your guests themselves.
Well,
What
I think it really is just, it's a reminder of, it all comes down to the right attitude that we started the conversation with, because that can make the difference of an exceptional experience and one where it just falls flat. And I'll explain where an experience falls flat, because I do see it sadly a lot. And all it takes is a simple attitude adjustment. So it can be anything from miscommunication where, oh, where is this? Or I can't find this. And, a front desk agent is like, I don't know. And then the conversation ends.
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
like, oh my gosh. And first of all, it's like, you should know if you can buy deodorant in your gift shop or not, something simple like that. Okay. That is something that you should know. Maybe you're new, maybe things are new. You haven't gotten the question before. I will give you the benefit of that doubt. I get it. But then it's like, oh, it all comes back to, you know what? I don't know, but let me find out for you.
Exactly.
And that's because it can be that communication, that lack of knowing, all of that. And then, a favorite experience that I had, and it's interesting because I happen to be going back to that same city next week, but I was staying, and I'll even just give them a shout out just because I was staying at the Ritz-Carlton in Berlin. This was now 5 years ago. And I went there and, we were just having some breakfast, like on their concierge lounge, where they have, the little bites and things like that. And they had honey, and it was honeycomb. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, this honeycomb. And they're like, that's the honeycomb that we got from our roof. And they actually have, a whole situation on their situation. I'm not thinking of the right word, but they basically have, bees on their roof. And that honeycomb came from there. And I'm like, no way. This is so cool. It's minor. It may not even be that big of a deal for anybody else, but whatever it was tickling me so much. I went out for the day. I came back and they actually got some of their honey from their honeycomb, put it in a jar, and they had it in my room for me to take home. And I share this example because in theory, it doesn't cost them anything. They already have the whole setup. It was such a thoughtful thing because they saw how much it meant to me. Maybe the next person's like, I don't even like honey. They don't care. But it meant something to me. And they put it, in a container for me to take home. And it's like, here's a little memory from your experience.
Fantastic.
And it was just a simple thing. But I was like, how thoughtful is that? So I think there's also this element of this thoughtfulness, which ultimately is what, maybe that's what it is. That's the root of where we're talking about having the right attitude. Well, that's broad. So I think really the attitude is really just being thoughtful, because being thoughtful means that you are placing value on the guest. You're actually listening to them. And then whether you're helping them find an answer, or whether you go above and beyond to do something unexpected, like my honey experience, doing something like that, that's what makes the difference. So I think we really need to just kind of shift our mindset to being, how can we just provide thoughtful customer experiences? Because that's really, I think that's the special sauce.
I was going to say that definitely is the special sauce. And I love that. And even if it did cost them, what it would cost them is nothing.
Yeah.
And here it became a part of your story. You're sharing your story now, right? Like that's what it's about. You want ultimately to turn your customers, your guests, into your marketing sales force. And it's free just by simply being thoughtful, by giving them those personal experiences, those touches of saying, you matter, I see you. We want to make sure your experience here is as great as possible, and take a little bit of that home with you. That is just a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and that ties it. One other quick thing with that is to then give, managers or owners of properties to let that trickle down. And that means the line staff, empower the line staff to be able to make those decisions on their own. Let the line staff know that they can comp a drink on behalf of the hotel for a guest. Because if you start creating these barriers, they're not going to go above and beyond and do those special things. But if you empower them and say, you have enough authority that you can make that executive decision to send a drink up on, or get honey, whatever it is,
right?
That's where those moments can happen, because then they take pride in it because they made that decision.
Yeah, the pride, that's the key thing. I always talk about you want your people to take pride and ownership in your business, and they're part of what it is. And you hit the nail on the head. It's that empowerment. And that's why the third part of my E3 formula is that once you've educated your people on your values and what they're doing, you've engaged with them, how you want them to engage with your end customers, you're engaged with them to show them you're right there with them, you're all in this together. The last step is in trust, and in trusting is empowering them to make those independent decisions.
Exactly.
So that they have the pride, they can feel good that I made a difference in this person's life. It's not just that I'm here collecting a paycheck, but no, I'm interacting with the customer, the guest, and they're going to go home now with this great story because of me.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
it represents the company, but it's also like that pride and that great feeling when you give to someone else. It's always better, right? We get a better feeling to give than we do often to receive. So
Yes,
yeah.
so true. Love that.
Gosh, thank you. This was so fun, and I'm gonna have to cut it off. But I just love talking to you always. You're just a
Likewise.
delight and filled with light and great energy and story and attitude with that got you into the concierge position to start with. I'm just going to put up here one more time for everyone to connect with Sarah. Her big platform is Instagram. There is her Instagram, and it's everywhere. Ask a Concierge. Her website is askaconcierge.tv, which is to be noted, not .com. And Sarah, again, thank you so much for being with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that others will watch the replay. I forgot to say in the beginning, if you're watching the replay, thank you, and be sure to tag us with any questions, any comments, and we'll engage with you there.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I love
Hang on for a second with me, Sarah. I'm just going to wrap up here and let everyone know about what's coming up.
Sure.
So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Sarah is a wealth of information and inspiration, and so much to learn from and watch her videos, her pictures. You must tune in and connect with Sarah for sure. Next week, we will have another interesting and fun topic, always a different spin, but always related to EX and CX. So I want to thank you again for your time being with us today. And I appreciate you, and have a great rest of your week. And we will see you next week.